This is Jablam Hockey with your hosts, Peter Wojcicki and Paul Swinbeck. Welcome to Jablam Hockey, folks. I'm your host, Peter Wojcicki. You can find me on Twitter at Russian98, and I am with
Paul Zwambag. You can find me at Zwambag, Z-W-A-M-B-A-G. How's it going, everybody? Peter, what's up?
Woohoo! Yeah!
What happened? The Penguins winning?
No, the Islanders are still leading. We're recording this, of course, Friday night, so this will post it Saturday. No, the Islanders are still leading the Penguins. Obviously, being a Leaf fan, it would be nice if they could beat them, but in regulation would be even better. But doesn't look like it with about 6 minutes left. No, I'm yahooing why. The Leafs, they're like playing really, really well right now.
Yeah,
it's like, I think they played like 5 or 6 great games. In my opinion, they haven't been that good since about the All-Star game. They've had a few games, 1 or 2, where they've been pretty good, but overall, I just think they haven't been playing well. A big part of that is, the season's been dragging on. It's a long season for these rookies. They're not used to playing this many games. Austin Matthews specifically hasn't been that great, maybe. Even during the last few games, maybe a little better the last 2 or 3. But before that, he had about a stretch where he wasn't playing pretty good for about 6-7 games. Even in my mind, not as good as the stretch at the beginning of the season where he didn't score a goal for about 11 games. Then he was still getting 3 or 4 good chances a game. In those last few games, though, before, the little stretch that they've had right now, he wasn't. He had like 3 or 4 straight games where he had no shots or one, which is very rare for Mr. Matthews. So I'm just thrilled the way they're playing right now. They're playing excellent. Right now, their playoff chances are looking pretty good. It would be neat if they got the 3rd place, maybe play the Sens. Woohoo! The Pittsburgh Penguins just scored, Paul. It's 3-3.
That's how to
yes.
Pens.
Beautiful. I think it was the old geezer Colin.
Attaboy, Dad.
So, maybe Gunsel. All right. Anyways, so just happy about that. And you know what? It would be nice if they could play Ottawa. There might be a chance they could maybe beat them. Again, like I said, the original 6, the older teams, usually step it up for some odd reason in the playoffs. And I think the Leafs could do that. They could maybe beat the Sens. So it would just be nice if that happened. And, I'm thrilled about it. They're playing really well right now. And it's very odd because the Bruins are playing the opposite right now. Other than Marchand, they are not playing very well. So that's good news for the Leafs, too.
Yeah, and it'll be exciting because it'll be a Toronto-Ottawa matchup, and then they'll play the winners of Montreal or the Rangers, I guess. So whoever's going to come out of that Ottawa-Toronto series is going to be playing a pretty good team, but it's going to be a good matchup no matter what because it's the Rangers or the Canadiens.
Yeah,
so.
It'd be so neat if just the Leafs, it would be nice even more. They win 1 round, again, a little rivalry with Ottawa. They beat them, and then they play an original, totally 6 matchup. The Rangers would be amazing. The Habs even more amazing. It would be nice. It would be nice,
And then they play the Penguins in the conference finals, and they lose.
Yeah, well, that would just be outstanding if that happened. The Pens would win, and I'd still be like, you know what? It sucks. We lost, but wow, we made it pretty far for this team that just turned it around within 1 year. And just speaking about that, I just wrote a blog, and we'll probably post it in a day or 2. I wrote about the basement dwellers that are all playoff teams right now. So it's pretty crazy that these 4 of these 5 teams from last year, Columbus, Edmonton, Calgary, and Toronto, were at the bottom. They were completely garbage last year, pretty much. And they're all pretty good teams this year. And Columbus could win a President's Trophy. It's ridiculous. So, insane. All right, Paul, let's get into this. Trending now. First, I wanted to talk about U.S. women's hockey team. It's a tough subject to talk about, and that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up. Right now, the U.S. women are threatening to sit out the upcoming World Championship unless significant progress is made in their ongoing negotiations with USA Hockey over what they consider to be unfair wages.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it is a tough subject. It's a very tough subject.
In my opinion, I don't know. Just looking at it over paper, it seems like they are being underpaid. It just overall, they deserve a lot more. A lot of female athletes deserve a lot more. But again, on the flip side of the coin, I like to say it's entertainment. It's what puts the butts in the seats. That's where people get money. How much money are they paying to get those butts in the seats? I look at tennis, just looking at tennis, and I always like to compare things with tennis, especially with money. Women's tennis isn't that much different than men's tennis because it's not a physical game. And they bring the butts to the seats. But the only difference there is women's tickets don't cost as much as men's tickets. I know I go to tournaments all the time. I've seen the women play. I've seen the men play, and I know in terms of prices, there is a difference. But overall, the gameplay is pretty good. They're both very good, and it's not that far off in terms of comparing the quality of what you're watching. But again, what I like to say, Ken, in terms of the big matchups, the Opens, the big 4 Grand Slams, the women don't play for 3 sets. The men do. So there, maybe I would think you give the slight edge to men. But again, women's tennis, they still make a lot of money. They're making the millions too. So that's why they deserve to make the millions too, because it's very comparable. But when you go to other sports, it's not so much comparable, with basketball and hockey and football, obviously. It's a totally different sport. It's totally different what you're watching. And again, a lot of it has to do with physicality and, of course, skill level. They are better, so they're going to get paid more. So it's hard to compare. In terms of... Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing that they're fighting for is trying to build the game from the base level, and Team or USA Hockey has done that with the men and boys side of hockey, and it's already showing the development program that they have, but they don't have the same kind of program for the women, and I think that's a big concern as well, because it's eventually going to phase out. Like, there's not a lot of soccer played in smaller towns in Ontario because it's just not popular enough, where it's one of the biggest sports in the world, but there's a lot less development programs in like places like Canada, or even USA is starting to put money into it, but they were far behind too. So I think they got to start putting their development money into women hockey as well.
Yeah, they should, and it'll get better too if you do that. So that's when it comes to national games and matches, in my opinion, they should be more even, because it's not actually the professional sport of it. In my opinion, I don't know. I just feel that way a little bit. So hopefully they get something and there's a good outcome of this. Otherwise, I believe they've already passed the training camp beginning, which was supposed to be Wednesday. And I believe the tournament starts on the 31st. That's coming up shortly. So it'll be very odd to see USA not playing. And of course, they're a juggernaut for women's hockey.
Yeah, and it might even affect the Olympics coming, because these are tournaments that they pick their teams, they develop their players in these tournaments because there isn't a development program. So it might even affect the Olympics down the line. So, and it might be a big ticket because of the whole NHL not going to the Olympics. So the women's hockey might even be better hockey than the men's hockey.
Yeah, bigger draw.
Yeah,
that's for sure. All right, let's move on to what Paul likes to call Peter's favorite topic: suspensions.
Oh, yay!
Yay! All right, so there was a few handed out this week, and I don't know about you, Paul, but I don't know, I'm a little peculiar about them, in the fact that, okay, Roman Polak crunched a player, I forget, it was in the Columbus game, I believe, Bjorkstrand, maybe.
Yep.
Anyways, he turned a little bit the last second, and Polak, I think Polak actually did try to hold up at the last second, but couldn't. It was too late for him, and again, with his force and velocity that he lays out hits, he hit him pretty good, and he looked injured. So Pollock got 5 in a game. He was out of the game. And then the top of that, did you see that, Paul? Pollock got 5 in a game. Babcock forgot to put a guy in the bench for Pollock. Did you see this?
And they ended up having a longer penalty
kill. They had to kill a 7-minute penalty because they forgot to put another guy in for Pollock. So they had to kill an extra 2 minutes on top of the major, and they did. It was amazing. It was laughable. It was funny. I'm watching the game with my dad, and he's like, "Why don't we have another guy on the ice? Why is there 4 guys on the ice?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's going on?" "Oh, I think they forgot to put a guy in." And I even said, "I think they forgot to put a guy in the thing, I think." And you have to wait for a whistle. You can't, because the guy has to come from that side of the ice. And I'm laughing the whole time, actually. The Leafs were playing fairly well, so I was a little more confident too about it. It wasn't that scary.
And did he forget, or did he try and outsmart and have as many players as he could on the bench?
I think he kind of forgot. I think he wanted to delay it maybe too, but then they didn't give him a second chance. I think he wanted to try to put a guy in a little bit later, like a minute later, and they didn't let him. And then when that happened, and then he even said on the bench to the players instantly, he's like, "My boys, that's my fault. That's my fault." And he even said with the media scrum after the game, so yeah, it's all on me. That's the last time I ever do that. So, and it's hilarious because then on the flip side, you see Tortorella going ballistic. I'm like, what's wrong with you? You just got a 5-minute major power play, and now you're getting more minutes, and you're even more angry. Like, I love Tortorella, actually, and a lot of people don't, but this is where it's hilarious sometimes, and I like that too part of him, where he just goes ballistic on so many different levels. And again, yes, so there were some borderline hits earlier in the game, like the Pollock hit, and that's one of the reasons why they were mad at. But again, there's some missed calls the other way too, and it happens. Missed calls happen. But going back to, again, that was hilarious. But going back to the suspensions, Pollock gets 2 games for that hit. And then, what is it? Ristolainen gets 3 games for, it's a clean hit, but it is interference. He never accepted the puck, and Ristolainen totally thought the puck was coming to him, and it looked like it was, but it was deflected at the last second before the player got it. So he did get him, and it was 3 games, and he was injured. So are we just calling these suspensions based on injuries again? Because that's what it seems like the NHL is doing right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it closely, but at the time that it happened, I was watching the game, and I thought it was a dirty hit, so I was hoping for suspension.
Yeah.
So I haven't really gone back and looked at replays or anything, so I thought it was okay. I thought he should have, but that might be my Pens bias. The Pens.
Yeah.
And they took out my buddy Jake Gunsel, so...
Who has a history, right?
Yeah.
So, again, like, you know what? If it wasn't a huge, big guy like Ristolainen, if it wasn't a guy like Gunsel who has a history, would we even be talking about a suspension right now? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe he would have got a penalty during the game. Maybe that's it. But I think because of those factors, that's why. And again, the Sabres are totally out of contention. If it was, a top player on, Washington, like Carl Alsner that laid out that hit, are we talking about a suspension right now? I don't know. I don't think so. So that's what I'm leaning on. Same with the Pollock thing. Yeah, I'm okay with suspension. Sometimes maybe we all think as the Leaf fans, maybe Pollock needs a suspension. And maybe he didn't get 1 or 2 that he should have got, right? But it's tough when the guy turns at the last second. And it happens all the time, though. Boardings happen all the time. Headshots, like the Shoshnikov hit on Bergeron the other game against Bruins, that could have been a suspension. This happens 2 or 3 times a game, in my opinion, that are borderline boarding hits. Guys get up and walk away, though. Bergeron got up and walked away. If Bergeron was injured, 100%, Shoshnikov is getting 2 games, right? Right? So, again, they're basing it on injuries, and you should not do that. If you hit Crosby, there's a good chance he's going to get injured. If you hit another guy, like Grabowski was when he was on the Leafs, he might have been concussed, but he walks away and he skates away like nothing happened, and then later on you find out, maybe it shouldn't play. So it's that I don't want the NHL to get into this factor, and if they're going to start calling suspensions on these hits from behind or in the head, they have to call them all the time now, or at least give them a fine or a 1 game the first time, and then we know, and then later on, or at least we should know about the warnings too or something, if they warn players of these hits. Maybe Polak has been warned once or twice, right?
Yeah.
And then it makes a little bit of sense. But again, it happens all the time, in my opinion. Happens, borderline hits, hits from behind, in the boards. It's like high sticking. High sticking happens all the time. Half of them get called, right?
Yeah.
And again, the game's so fast, it's hard to call. So, I don't know. Suspensions are odd sometimes. And then now we go to your boy, Sid the Kid.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Is he above the law?
Oh,
I don't know.
Geez.
So he gives Ryan O'Reilly a little bit of a tap from underneath,
in the little
area.
That was pretty dirty.
And what happens? Oh, Sid doesn't even get a minor penalty? All right. Next, I don't know, the slash on Method. Is Method missing a finger? What happened there?
Yeah, it basically, he chopped off his finger. It was disgusting.
Oh, my goodness. And why did everybody have to show it like 5,000 times? Media, What's wrong with you? You guys are getting worse than like Sun TV. Like, I don't know what's going on. Why do we need to see this gruesome injury like a bajillion times in 2 days?
And you know what's even worse? I went and looked for it because I saw just a quick highlight and I was like, oh my God, I got to see that again. And it was, just disgusting. I wish I didn't go and search for it.
Oh no, I did not search for it, but I saw it a bajillion times because I like watching. Big ups to That's Hockey Tonight on TSN. I like watching them because they go in depth with their analysis. And Craig Button, Paul, did you have my boy Craig Button on your Prospects show?
Yeah, we did last night on Dauber Prospects Radio. It was a good interview. It was fun.
Yes, wicked. Go out there and listen to Dauber Prospects podcast. They have Craig Button on the show this week, so great. I loved it. I listened to a little bit of it. I'm going to listen to the rest, and I'm a fan of Button. He's a little bit more old school, but I like that he likes to show both sides of the view of anything that happens, and I like try to do the same thing. I might be a little biased, but at the same time, I like to look at both sides of the puck, and he does too. So I like seeing and listening to Button. But again, going back to the Crosby and stuff, man, I don't know. That was disgusting.
But was it that big of a slash? I've seen a whole lot worse slashes that do a lot less damage. I think it just was he just got him right in the right spot.
And again, if the NHL is basing things on injury, again, that's where I'm a little surprised again now. So now they're not basing things on injury. Ooh, weird, crazy hit by Nelson. Ooh, on the Pens. Anyways, they're in overtime right now, 3-3. That's the update for that. But oh man, I don't know. It's okay. Paul, your opinion. What should Crosby have gotten for the
a fine?
Ryan O'Reilly underneath.
He should have definitely got a fine. Like
yes.
the max fine, whatever the max fine is, $3,500 or whatever it is.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying too. He should have just got the max fine, and he should have got at least like a double minor in the game, because to me that's like worse than getting a bloody high stick in the face, right?
He definitely should have got a penalty. Definitely should have got a fine after the fact. Yeah. I don't think a suspension is warranted.
Yeah, me neither. I don't think so. But again, he should have got a fine. In terms of the Method slash, nothing. You'd think nothing, right? And what do you think? At least in the game, again, in my opinion, I would go with a double minor in terms of bloody face, destroyed finger.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I wouldn't mind a suspension there, but again, who would have got a suspension for that? Are we starting a new thing? Maybe not. So I'm okay with not a suspension, But maybe the NHL should start doing something about these slashes because they are becoming more and more vicious. Recently, this season specifically, I don't know why, but guys like, and maybe it's because some of the guys are a little smaller and younger and not as, bulky as the guys were before. Marner, Johnny Hockey, they're getting some vicious slashes on them all year, and even Sid probably gets a lot of them too. But this one looked pretty bad, and maybe they should start looking into giving at least fines for some of these slashes. And now time for this week's Team ISO. Of course, Team ISO is the segment where we talk more in detail about one specific team. Last year, you got our opinion, Paul's and mine, and this year we're going out to the blogospheres. We're finding people that know a lot more about the teams than us, and this week's Team ISO guest is Laura. Astorian, I believe. Is that how you say your last name?
Yeah.
Perfect. And you can follow her on Twitter at HildyMac, so HILDYMAC. She's currently the blog manager at St. Louis Game Time, which is part of the SB Nation Network. Of course, we'll put that on our game notes, and we'll tweet that out to you from at Jablam Hockey. So, Laura.
Hey.
Great. How is going on in Blues country? Are they – well, let's go back to the Shattenkirk trade. When that was going on, how did it feel in Blues country?
Well, I mean, I think that by the time it rolled around, we had all been talking about it, and it had been looming for so long that it really wasn't a thing that was really – I'm not going to say it wasn't a big deal because obviously, it was since he was our main point producer on the power play. But we all just kind of knew it was coming and expected it and knew that it was because of a logjam with the cap situation. So we just kind of kept our fingers crossed for a decent return. It was just one of those kind of, que sera, sera kind of moments. And
yeah, they've been basically thinking about maybe trading him for 2, maybe 3 years now, right?
Yeah, and I think I read that they were trying to, at this year's draft, they were trying to trade him to Edmonton for Taylor Hall, and Shattenkirk kind of said, Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't want to go to oil country over there.
Yeah.
But is it very different because in past years you guys didn't trade away those top assets that were UFAs, even say as last year, and this year was like, okay, now we have to make a trade to trade one of these guys, and then you resigned back Berglund, right? And you traded Shattenkirk, but then like last year, you kept and didn't get anything for Backus, Brouwer, Elliott, so at least you got some decent pieces back for Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, and that I think was the most important part, and I think that was probably the biggest debate last year was, do you keep Backus and do you keep Brouwer for a playoff run, or do you get the parts back? And I mean, I think that was a mixed bag last year because obviously they were both ridiculously helpful during the playoffs, but the Blues were the Blues and didn't make it, but so you take that experience, I guess, and you learn from it. And I think that's what Doug Armstrong did this time was that he didn't really want to, I guess he didn't want to risk it.
So who do you have already stepping into that role for Shattenkirk? Is it Parayko pretty much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way that the defense is now, yeah. Just because honestly, looking at the other defensemen that we have, past Bouwmeester and Pietrangelo, they're not necessarily elite, except for Parayko has that potential definitely. So I think he's almost the default go-to replacement for right now for Shattenkirk.
And who's jumped into the bottom of the roster then? D depth.
Well, Bortuzzo is getting regular playing time. And I don't remember who the 7th defenseman is right now, which is good because usually it was just kind of a rotating kind of, who's in the press box tonight. So it's been fairly regular and nobody's gotten hurt. And I think that's really given the new pairings a chance to really come together pretty well.
Yeah, you got Edmondson, and then you got my boy Gunnarsson.
Yeah.
He's kind of underrated in Blues country, right? Is it Do people just like Bertuzzo more because he brings more of that physical element? Like for my Leafs, it's more of a Roman Polak, whereas Gunnarsson's more Swedish. He's more not fancy. He just goes there and just does his job in terms of clearing out the crease, taking the puck out of the zone.
Yeah. I think like is almost too strong of a word for the way that people feel about Gunnarsson, just because he tends to blend in so much when he's playing well, that he doesn't stand out. So there's really, honestly, the only time I ever notice people really talking about him is if he makes a mistake. But
it's very rare.
Yeah, and to be honest, as Blues fans, we do love our whipping boys sometimes, and we don't have Bear Jackman anymore, so we have to find And honestly, Bortuzzo, he's liked. He's not like ridiculously liked, but he's been more than capable stepping into a bigger role. So he's been a really good fit.
All right. So after the trade, is there a different feeling around the team with going to the playoffs and still trying to contend for maybe a cup?
I think that amongst the team, I don't know if it's different, but they seem, and it's really hard to peg it as much on the trade as Mike Yeo and the coaching change. It's hard for me to tell, which one has had a bigger impact. But I do feel right now with the team, they're playing with a lot more confidence.
Yes.
And I think part of that may be the schedule down the stretch, because when you play Colorado 5 times, that's a confidence builder.
Yeah.
But I can kind of tell that they seem to be a little bit more invested, and I think that explains their last stretch of play. But then on the flip side, you have the losing streak before that, and they look disinterested and bored. So it's so hard to figure. They can be such a streaky team. It's so hard to really get a good read at what's at what the issue is or what impacts him, because it's different stretch to stretch. But I think among the fans, a lot of fans, especially probably during January and a little bit of February, kind of we're starting to not write the season off, but definitely kind of getting into, well, we'll do it next year mode. Because if there's one thing we're good at, it's getting into that kind of mode.
So, we're pretty good during the season, so we'll stick with that. Yeah. So Jake Allen, how did he turn his season around? I remember him not doing so well. I, being a bit of a Blues fan myself, was even questioning him. But he's been pretty stellar the last month or so.
I think the coaching change helped a little bit. I don't know how much leaving him at home on that one road trip helped. But I really think that just everything around him calming down, because one thing I've noticed with Allen is that if the team is playing uncertain, then he does. And it's almost like he either feeds off that uncertainty or he exacerbates it. And I think that now the team has finally gotten to a point under the new coaching staff where they know the new system, which isn't phenomenally different from the old one, I guess. But they know what's expected. They know what the play is going to be. I think it brings a little bit more comfort back there for him. So he calms down a bit. And I'm sure working with Brodeur and Ty Conklin have probably helped too. I mean, when your goalie coach is Brodeur, it's kind of, kind of tough not to take something away from that, I guess.
Yeah. So is it Allen, or is it just the way the schedule is unfolding? But why are the Blues playing so well right now, like 9-1 in the last 10?
Yeah. I think a good part of that is the schedule, because we had, I think down the stretch, the Blues have the easiest schedule out of the teams vying for playoff position. But I do think that if Allen plays with confidence, and he has been recently, that the team does play a lot better. And Carter Hutton's been fine too. So I think knowing that at least that they have that kind of last line behind him who's finally gotten to a point in the season where he's playing with a clear head. I think that helps. But I really honestly do think that a good portion of the confidence building has been the number of non-playoff teams they've played. But on the flip side, they've also played really well against playoff teams too. Yeah. So, I don't want to jinx it and say it's only because they're playing the Avalanche and the Coyotes so much, but I do think that helps.
Yeah. I know a lot of people might want to wonder what's going on with Yakupov since he's going to the Blues. Oh. But I myself kind of wanted to find out what's going on with Magnus P.R.V. Svensson. I was a bit of a fan of him when he was on the juniors for Sweden, and he looks like he's been playing fairly well this year, just hasn't been playing that much.
Yeah, and he wound up getting 2 goals last night, and was the first star of the game. So I think a little bit of it is the line that he's on right now with Barbashev. He seems to be playing really well with him. I guess they must have had some experience together with the Wolves. But even when he was playing with Berglund centering him, he looked a little bit better. I don't think that with Ken Hitchcock, I don't think Hitchcock really had an exact place for him on the roster. And I remember reading a while ago that Hitchcock wasn't happy with his play along the boards and fighting for pucks and things like that. But he's being utilized a little differently now and being given, a little bit more freedom to get out there and play his game. And I think that's helping him a lot. I think it's building some confidence.
Yeah, I still think there's some untapped potential from Magnus, so I think you can maybe bring it out. Paul, did you have any prospects you want to talk about?
Yeah, you started with Barbashev playing with PRV. Do you think he's here to stay for the rest of the year?
Oh yeah, I do. With Fabry out, that's left an opening. And it's unfortunate that Fabry got injured and is out until I think September. I think that was the guess on that. So it's pretty much his guaranteed spot. And honestly, as well as Barbashev has been playing, and as much positive that people have had to say about how well he's playing, I think that honestly it's his roster spot to lose out of camp next year, depending on off-season moves.
Interesting. Kenny Agostino's having a pretty good year with the Wolves. And he had 7 games in middle of February. What happened to him? Why didn't he stay with the Blues?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, and I've learned not to over the years just not really to question who they send down, because it's somebody different every time. It was, to me, it was unfortunate they sent him down just because I was really enjoying watching him play and watching him play so well at the NHL level, just being a call-up like that. I'm thinking that they probably, part of the reason was I think maybe that they couldn't get him sufficient playing time up in the NHL, and they figured just for development's sake it would probably be better for him if he went back down to Chicago. And I think that Barbashev may have passed him on the development chart, and that's kind of why they picked him to send down.
All right, and talking about the Shattenkirk trade, you guys picked up Zach Sanford and Phoenix Copley. How have they looked with the Wolves?
Sanford's looked good. He's been up with, actually he was on the second line last night. Because of Paul Stastny's injury, they had to kind of shuffle stuff around and put Steen at center, so they moved Sanford off the line with Barbashev and PRV and moved him up to the second line, and he's looked very good. I think he's probably going to get more of an opportunity here than he would in Washington, definitely. I think that the Capitals just have too much.
Yeah, and Copley has taken time from Binnington with the Wolves?
Yeah, I could have sworn, didn't we send him back to Washington?
Did we? Oh, okay, yep.
I think they did. That was an interesting trade. That was a very unique deal for the Blues. I hope they figured out that second-round draft pick at some point.
All right, thanks for that update. On the defensive side, who's going to be in the NHL sooner, Vince Dunn or Brad Hunt?
Oh, that's a tough question. I don't know, because Brad Hunt played well.
Yeah.
I don't know, honestly. I think with the way that the Blues usually have their defense, they're not really, unless it's like out of left field, like Edmondson and Parayko were last year. That had such good camps. I just don't really know if if any of the defensive prospects will really get a chance.
Interesting. One last one. Jordan Kyrou's kind of out on an island with the Sarnia Sting. I think he's in tough for his playoff series this year in the OHL. Do you think he's going to be a good Blue eventually, or is he going to be on his own?
I don't see why he couldn't be. My only concern would just be depth in the organization, and just seeing when he would get the opportunity. It's not like Doug Armstrong ever makes any huge, massive off-season moves. Once in a blue moon, he might do anything. So I don't know if anybody's going to wind up coming in to take that opportunity from him. But I do think that there are probably enough in front of him where it's going to be a little while.
All right. Thanks for that prospect look for the Blues. All right. So Tarasenko, of course, is outstanding. I think he's fourth in the league in goals. But like last year, he was excellent in the first round, and then he was pretty much stopped as they got further into the playoffs. That's been the problem in my eyes with the Blues, especially in the playoffs. They have great two-way talent and play, but not enough finish, and they might be lacking in that. They could play the Hawks. They could play the Sharks. Maybe right now it would be a good fit if they play the Wild. Where are they going to get that second scoring from, though?
Oh, geez. That's a good question. Just because this season, it's like Jaden Schwartz the other night finally scored his first non-empty net goal since the Obama administration. So relying, I think, on some of our usual guys for secondary scoring, I don't know how well that's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But it is the playoffs, and you never really can tell who's going to do it. Right now, honestly, a lot of our secondary scoring this year has come from Patrick Berglund, which has been a fantastic and pleasant surprise. Not that, he isn't a good player. It's just that, he's not a goal scoring machine. And this year he's number 2 on the team in goals.
Mm-hmm.
So
he's never been great in the playoffs too. I believe. So yeah, I don't know. That's again the only thing, the question mark for me for the Blues, especially going to the playoffs almost every year, but again, even more so this year.
Oh yeah, and I mean honestly, it's been a question mark all season. I mean the Blues have finally gotten into a positive goal differential. There for a while, they weren't scoring and they were losing games, 1-0 or like 2-1, and they had that stretch. I think it was in November and December where they just could not score. And I think that that's a very valid concern that, maybe the playoffs, if whoever we play figures Tarasenko out and without Fabry, and if Schwartz doesn't pick it up, and Steen hasn't really been scoring that much this year either. I'm not really there's not one player that I can look at and go, this is the person who's going to pick up the slack, so. And I think it's going to be scoring by committee, and hopefully that committee, gets together and figures something out, or else it'll be one and done this year.
Mm-hmm. Well, Laura, thank you for coming on the show.
Well,
it was great to hear your opinion and everything. I hope good luck for the Blues. Maybe if they play the Wild, and they're not playing so well right now, Dubnik's not playing so well right now, maybe they might get slight edge on them.
I hope so. I'll keep my fingers crossed. I'm not really, being a Blues fan has conditioned me to expect nothing at all. So I usually just kind of start the playoffs and kind of go, well, here we are again, and I'll keep my fingers crossed. So
how'd you like them beating the Hawks then last year?
I did enjoy that. That was that was definitely something that it was nice to see. I mean, obviously it wasn't, the be all end all of everything. And I understand, some Hawks fans poking at us, and
Yeah.
doing the look at how many cups we have kind of thing. But
you achy Bacchus, those what?
Oh yeah, but it was still rewarding. I think that there were a couple games that we could have finished the series a lot earlier
Mm-hmm.
had they played a little bit better, and I think that was kind of a sign of things to come.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I'm not gonna complain about it.
Yeah. All right, Laura, thank you for coming on the show. Again, you can find her on Twitter at HildyMac, and we will post everything on our Games Notes on jablamhockey.com. Again, Laura, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Talk to you later.
Paul, let's do a friendly bet. Maybe the last friendly bet of the year, unless we do one during the playoffs. We were thinking about doing the Ross Trophy, but it looks like McDavid is just going to blow everybody away, right?
Yeah, unless Crosby decides to turn it on and has a wicked 3 or 4 game stretch, I think McDavid's got it wrapped up.
Yeah. So instead of, I was going to probably pick McDavid, you're going to pick Crosby a few days ago, maybe a little tighter. We're going to go with who we think could win that second spot in the Pacific. The main two teams right there, and the Flames aren't too far behind, but they're a few points behind. The main two teams are what? The Ducks and the Oilers, right?
I wondered when you brought this up, I wondered why we didn't just go with the Pacific winner. You think the Sharks got that wrapped up? They're only 2 points ahead. They're 4 and 6 in the past 10. I don't know. I think the Pacific's up in the air.
Wow. I don't know. The main thing was the Bernier factor, the history of San Jose. Right now, they're not playing so well, but I don't see that continuing. I think they got to change it up a little bit right before the playoffs start. Or if they don't, I think they're going to pull maybe a Minnesota Wild, and if they keep on not playing well, they could be one of those upset teams in the playoffs. They could be upset early. So I think San Jose Sharks will turn it around, at least soon enough. But for the second, I think it's closer, obviously. They're tied at 89 points. So I'm going to go with the Ducks just because they have more experience. They have guys that have been there, done that, and that's why I'm picking the Ducks. Paul?
I'm going to go with the Edmonton Oilers. They both have been kind of playing the same. What?
You're taking a Canadian team?
I know.
This can't be true.
It's going against all I believe in. All my friendly bets have been against Canadian teams. I know, and I'm probably going to lose them all.
Yeah.
But I think the Oilers are a far better team right now than the Anaheim Ducks are. And key position is the goaltending. Bernier over Talbot is farce. That can't happen. Unless John Gibson comes back, which he's likely on the return, I think Talbot can win more games than Bernier for his team.
That's the only factor I'm thinking about that might hurt the Ducks, but they're still playing pretty well with Bernier the last little while. So it's going to be close, but I think the Ducks will just edge out the Oilers for that second spot.
With the Ducks' home record of 24-8-4, it really depends on how many home games they have left. Because if they get a lot of home games, they got a good stretch of home games, that they play way better at home than they do away. Yeah. So Edmonton's kind of 20 wins on both sides of home and away. So
I think they have. I think they have more away games coming up. So it's going to be close.
And you were talking about San Jose being an upset. Mm-hmm. Anaheim, Edmonton, Calgary. If they fall into that first wild card spot, that goes to the San Jose Sharks if they win the Pacific. Yeah. So that's going to be a tough series, no matter who they face there.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year, and I'm even already looking at maybe Minnesota versus St. Louis. If that happens, I don't know what's going on, but St. Louis is playing pretty well right now, and the opposite for the way Minnesota's been playing all season. They're 2-8 in the last 10. So we're going to talk a lot more about this in the next few episodes. And, of course, we're going to have a season playoff preview in a week or two. So stay tuned for that. But it's all interesting. But that's our friendly bet. I'm picking the Ducks. You're picking the Oilers for second in the Pacific. All right, Paul, do you have a little Jablam Junior Hockey update for us?
Yeah, the CHL playoffs have started for WHL, OHL, QMJHL. It's getting really exciting. But the one key series that I think you should focus in on is the London Knights versus Windsor Spitfires. London has to win to at least have a chance to go to the Memorial Cup. Windsor doesn't have to win to go to the Memorial Cup. They're hosting it this year, but I'm pretty sure most of these games are going to be on Sportsnet. They already have the first two at London. Nice. First one was Friday night. The next one's Sunday night. So you'll be able to watch that game for sure. And watch out for the QMJHL St. John Sea Dogs. They are a dominant team. I'm pretty sure they won 9-2 tonight. 9-2, 9-1. They score in bunches, and they're probably coming out of the queue for the Memorial Cup. And I also like the Everett Silvertips. I tweeted out my full brackets. I made brackets this year all the way to the finals, reseeding all the players. I got Everett, St. John, and Erie Otters coming out to be in the Memorial Cup with the Windsor Spitfires. So a lot of great hockey coming up. I'm going to be writing a lot more about it, both on Dauber Prospects and Jablam Hockey. It's getting into the busy season, so I'm really excited about some junior hockey coming up.
Nice. You're excited about that. I'm already excited about my playoff pool and NHL playoffs coming up. The first round, I love the first round. It's so amazing. And I wish the first round could last like the whole playoffs.
Yeah, that's how I feel. That's how I feel with the CHL playoffs. Like, I'm going to watch so much CHL hockey in the next week because there's just the best hockey below the NHL, but still, these kids play unbelievably in the first round, so I'm really excited. They
try so hard, yeah. It's exciting to watch.
A small little plug, Peter. Go on jablamhockey.com. I put out my predictions for all those three leagues, and I also did my NCAA bracket. A little disappointing. Boston U beat North Dakota today, so my Frozen Four teams are busted. I only can get 3 of 4 if I go and get Denver, UMass, and Harvard all right. But yeah, North Dakota losing was a big bracket buster for me. So go check that out on jablamhockey.com. You can see all my predictions.
Are you going to post the goal by Clayton Keller on the game notes?
I will, because that was an unreal setup to Charlie McAvoy, who's also going to be a stud. Boston U could get dangerous if those two kids heat up and lead the Boston U. They might have a chance to go to the Frozen Four and Final Two, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, I always catch at least the Final Four, so those games are exciting. And it was fun being in Colorado last year when that happened too, when Colorado was in it. And they're playing even better this year, so they have a good chance to win the whole thing. So
yeah, Denver looks really good.
Yeah, go Denver. And that's it for this episode. Again, go on jablamhockey.com, check out Paul's new blog. Sean has a new blog about the Ice Caps, the last few games that they've been playing. My blog is going to be dropping soon. And again, check out all our old episodes, our Team ISOs, our old blogs, and please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes for our podcast. And we're also on YouTube. If you don't like the podcast straight up with audio and you just want to go on your computer and listen to us, you can listen to us right on YouTube, Jablam Hockey. And that is it. See you next week.
Bye. Sorry, Peter, the pen's lost.